everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video in my Explain series. Now, in this series, I take certain aspects of the world of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, and I explain it in such a way that a new reader or someone who hasn't read the series before can understand without ruining the books for them. Now, what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about the Ogier. Now, I've broken this down into 10 different sections. 7 of them are going to be completely spoiler-free. The last 3 will have spoilers. However, I will stop and I will let you know when the spoilers are coming. So those of you who haven't read the series yet or don't want anything spoiled can kind of dip out at that point. All right, what are the sections? Well, we're going to talk about what are the Ogier, their physical appearance, their mannerisms, their history, their society, their stedding, their skills. That's all spoiler-free. The last 3 sections are spoiler-filled. That is the notable Ogier in the story, Deathwatch Gardeners, and what I think happens to them after the books. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get on to the video. What are the Ogier? The Ogier are a race of humanoids that value deep thought, knowledge, peace, and nature. Now, there are 2 different types of Ogier in the world of the Wheel of Time. The first type we're going to talk about, and they'll be the main focus of this video, they're the Ogier in the Westlands. Now, across the Earth Ocean in the Sanchan Empire, there are a second type of Ogier called the Deathwatch Gardeners. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in the spoiler version of this video. Physical appearance. Now, Ogier men are around 8 feet tall. They have a broad nose, eyes the size of teacups, long ears with tufts of hair in the end of them, which, incidentally, are a secondary erogenous zone, so it's not really polite to talk about them. And they're very, very long-lived. Now, Ogier women are slightly shorter for the most part, and they have softer feminine features. Mannerisms. Ogier are reclusive. So reclusive, in fact, that most people in the Westlands don't believe they exist. Those that do know they exist and that they are real creatures love and respect them. The Aiel, who basically don't love and respect almost anyone not of their own culture, call them water friends and regularly trade with them and will not make war with them, which is saying something because they make war with pretty much everyone. Now, Ogier are peaceful, thoughtful, slow and deliberate, and they don't like haste whatsoever. They really like to think things through. Now, Ogier also, because they are so peaceful, have a reputation, and there's a saying, to anger the Ogier is to pull the mountains down on your heads, which has, 2 meanings. The first meaning being it's almost impossible to pull the mountains down your head, so you're not going to anger an Ogier. However, if you do pull the mountains down your heads, you're going to have a bad day. Ogier are known to be very, very fierce warriors when backed into a corner and angered, but it takes a whole lot for them to get that way. History. Now, the history of the Ogier is strange and mostly forgotten. It's believed they came to the world sometime between the First and the Second Age, but no later than the beginning of the Second Age. For reference, the Second Age is the Age of Legends. And when I say they came to the world, I mean they came to this world. They have a home world, and they used an Ogier artifact called the Book of Translation to transport them here. Now, I guess that sort of makes them aliens. Depends on what you want to believe. It's also said that at some point in the future they'll use the Book of Translation to return to their homeworld, but no one knows when that will be. The Book of Translation itself, as I said, is an Ogier artifact, but no one really knows what it is because its secrets are guarded very closely by the Ogier, although it is believed to be a form of a Terra Ingreal. But, like I said, no one knows for sure. During the Age of Legends, they were gardeners. They worked alongside the Nim and the Aiel to grow crops. They are very, very well respected because of this, because they helped feed the population. When the War of Power broke out, they wanted to be useful and not just grow crops, so they formed a police force. They worked for the Aes Sedai, and the dragon was their head. When the War of Power was all over and all of the male Aes Sedai were breaking the world, the Ogier offered them sanctuary within their stedding. Now, in a stedding, you can't channel. So when these men came to the stedding, essentially, one of 2 things happened. And there's 2 different schools of thought on this. The first is they prevented the complete destruction of the world, because if all of the male Aes Sedai went insane at the same time, there'd be nothing left. The second school of thought on this is they prolonged the breaking by having these male Aes Sedai come to the stedding and then send them out into the world 1 or 2 at a time. Now, depends on what you believe, but I choose to believe the fact that they saved the world by, not letting everyone go insane and breaking it at the same time. After the War of Power, they wandered looking for their stedding. Eventually, when they found their stedding again, they became a little reclusive. That's when they really started to withdraw from society. Now, when the Trolloc Wars happened, they came back into the fold and they fought alongside the humans, and they were very, very fierce warriors. So fierce, in fact, that a lot of the humans that fought alongside them were scared of them almost as much as they were scared of the Shadowspawn. When the Trolloc Wars were done, Ogier basically swore off all dealings with human wars and said they would never fight again, although they will be there at Tarmangaddon, the last battle, to help. Society. Ogier's society is matriarchal. That means that the woman of the household, the wife or the mother, makes all the most important decisions for the family. She basically runs things. She also gets to decide who her children will marry. Now, young Ogier of marriageable age, usually between 90 to 100, maybe a little bit older, will travel from Stedding to see and be seen. Now, they do this so the mothers can get together and basically decide who their children will marry. Now, Ogier are very, very long-lived, and when I say this, they live 3 to 4 times the age of humans, although it has been known that some of the very, very oldest Ogier are around 500 years old, so they can live a very, very long time. Because of this, they amass massive amounts of knowledge, and a lot of Ogier really value knowledge over almost everything except for nature. So in Ogier society, nature always comes first. Their houses are built into the earth, they're built around the trees. Growing things is seen as the pinnacle of what they could do. And then secondary to that is knowledge. They really enjoy studying and history and just knowing things. The Stedding. What is the Stedding? Well, the Stedding is where the Ogier live, and they are tied to it in a way that no one truly understands, and they don't think that anyone ever truly understood how they're tied to it. There are 41 different Stedding between the Aerith Ocean and the Isle Waste, each one having an average population of around 12,000 Ogier. Now, the Stedding has 2 very unique properties, the first of which is that not only can you not channel inside the Stedding, you can't feel the true source either. You can't reach out to it. So any channeler, both male and female, it's kind of uncomfortable for them to enter the Stedding because it feels like they've lost a part of themselves. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Ogier sheltered the male Aes Sedai during the Breaking of the World, and they did that because while they were in the Stedding, they couldn't use the source, although a lot of them were tempted to use it and they would end up leaving eventually. As a thank you, the male Aes Sedai gave the Stedding something called the Ways. Now, the Ways were a way, no pun intended, to travel between one Stedding and another Stedding in a very short amount of time. So they had all of these way gates that they would open up, and they would travel through this very light, bright world with fruit trees, and it was very, very beautiful over arches and columns and bridges through the air to get to another Stedding, and it could cut their travel time down considerably. 2 weeks worth of travel might be done in a day. Now, there are guideposts inside the Steddings that only Ogier can read, and that would take them to other Stedding. And when the last male Aes Sedai was all done during the breaking and they left the Stedding, they left the Ogier with a gift, the Talisman of Growing, which allowed them to grow more waygates wherever they would like and tie them to the other waygates already there. Now, eventually the ways would fall into darkness, but that's for another video. Now, I mentioned earlier as well that during the Breaking of the World, they lost their Stedding. They couldn't find them. And it was during this time that the Ogre of the Westlands developed something called the Longing. They were too far outside the Stedding for too long, and it basically caused every Ogier ever in the Westlands to develop the Longing, which is, while they're outside the Stedding, they would start to sicken, weaken, and die if they didn't come back. Now, it's over a period of time. It can be anywhere from weeks to months to quite possibly years. It varies by individual. But because of this, they are essentially completely tied to their homes, and they have to always go back to the Stedding to rest. Skills. Now, Ogier are known for a number of different skills. Now, physical skills, they're very big, they're very strong. And when I say strong, they are exceptionally strong. They are as strong as a Trolloc, if not stronger. And that's shown during the book series a number of times. They also have very, very good eyesight and very good hearing. It's been known to be about the same quality as a wolf, so they can hear things far away, and they can also see perfectly comfortably in the dark. Now, in addition to that, Ogier have an affinity for nature, so they're very good at growing things, they're very good with plants, and some of them can do something called tree singing. Now, tree singing is a skill where an Ogier would sing to a piece of wood or to a plant to make it grow, to make it stronger, to make it resistant to plague, to bugs, to any number of different things. And the strongest tree singers can sing to make items, so they can sing and make bowls or cups or staffs or weapons out of a tree without actually hurting the plant itself. So when they sing, it makes the item and the tree will regrow itself afterwards. Now, it's a very rare talent, but some Ogier have this talent. Now, the last thing that Ogier are really known for, more than anything else, is stonemasonry. Now, this is not something that they're exceptionally proud of. It's not something that they consider to be their best skill, because growing things in nature is their first and foremost love, although humans don't see it that way. Most humans know Ogier for their stonemasonry work. And when the 10 nations were being convened just before the Trolloc Wars and after the breaking, a lot of Ogier stonemasons at that point learned their craft and built a lot of the major cities. And when they built these major cities, they also planted groves. Now, these groves of great trees reminded them of home, and then they used the Talisman of Growing to grow waygates there so they could travel back and forth from the Stedding with ease. Now, to them, the great groves were their best work, but to humans, the cities they built was their best work. So it's just a difference of opinion there. Spoiler warning. If you haven't already read books 1 through 14 of the Wheel of Time series, be forewarned, the next few points may spoil a few of the plot points as well as some of the character arcs in the series. Let's get on with the video. Notable Ogier in the story. Now, this is going to be a short section because there's really only a couple of Ogier worth mentioning, and only one that really impacts the story to any great degree. So, the one that impacts the story the most is Loyal. Now, we see him at first in the Eye of the World, and we see him all the way through the book series, all the way up to the very last book, Book 14, A Memory of Light. Now, he factors very heavily in a lot of different plot arcs, most notably Parents and Rants. And without him, a lot of things probably wouldn't happen properly in the series. Not only is he very important to the series, but he's also used as sort of a crutch. Now, this crutch is a way to explain to the reader what's going on in the world and how things work. Now, the Emansfield Five and a lot of the people that Oil is around with are not very knowledgeable about the world or its workings, and he is there to explain things to them, which in turn explains things to us, the reader. So it's a really good idea that when you're reading the book series to pay attention to what Loyal says, because he's saying it for a reason, mainly because it's stuff that we need to know as a reader. Now, the other notable Ogier in the story, there's not many of them. There's Aerith. Aerith is a love interest of Loyal's that he meets when he goes back to his Stedding. Now, his mother eventually tries to set them up, and his mother is Corville. Now, Corville is also briefly in the story. She, along with Elder Hammond, another notable Ogier, try to find Loyal. So they go on a journey from the Stedding with Aerith, trying to find Loyal so they can marry him and settle him down and bring him back to the Stedding to stave off the longing. And that's pretty much most of their plot arc. They do all stay for the last battle, and you do see them in A Memory of Light, and you see them fighting there, which is kind of neat. However, that's pretty much the only real notable Ogier in the story, and again, Loyal is the really only one that matters out of all of them. Deathwatch Gardeners. Now, the Ogier across the Aerith Ocean are a little bit different than their cousins, we'll call them, in the Westlands. Now, they both love nature, they both love growing things, they are both mostly peaceful, they both have a lot of the same mannerisms. However, in the years after the breaking, they weren't separated from the Stedding like the Ogier in the Westlands were. Now, in the continent across the Aerith Ocean, there was more Stedding, they were more easily accessible, and the Ogier didn't have to worry about finding them again because it was pretty easy for them. Because of that, they never actually experienced the longing, so they can leave the Stedding for as long as they want with no ill effects. Now, when Arthur Hawking's armies came across the ocean, they basically saw the Ogier as very, very fierce warriors because that continent was in complete turmoil, and the Ogier had been fighting for their lives to protect their family and their Stedding basically since the breaking. Because of that, they recognized their worth, and they said they did two things. The first thing is they forbid them from having weapons outside their Stedding and from fighting unless they joined the ever-victorious army. And when they joined the ever-victorious army, they were trained as Deathwatch Guards. Now, Deathwatch Guards are essentially the elite shock troops of the ever-victorious army, and they are there to protect the Empress and her immediate family. And that is it. That is all they do. They will either kill or die, and it doesn't matter to them. Their lives are not their own. Their lives are the Empress's. Now, the Ogier Deathwatch Guards are called Gardeners, so they're the Deathwatch Gardeners, and they're considered even more fierce and elite than the human counterparts. Now, their whole job is to protect the Empress, and they do so without question. After the books. Alright, so there's not a whole lot of information of what happens to the Ogier after the books, and let's face it, there's not a whole lot of information what happens to any of the characters or people after the books, really. But I like to speculate, so we're going to do that now. So, during Knife of Dreams, they convened the Great Stump, and they basically had to decide whether they're going to open the Book of Translation to return to their homeworld or not. And they decided they weren't going to do that for one big reason. And that reason is, if they left and the last battle was lost, then their homeworld will be destroyed anyway, so it doesn't matter. So they decided to stay and fight to help in any small way they could, because if they left, there's a possibility that the Dark One could win. So they stayed. Now, we do know for sure that at some point or another they have to go back to their homeworld, because time is a wheel, and every age happens again and again and again and again forever. So, before the first age, definitely before the second age, the Ogier would have had to return to their homeworld so they could come back again. Now, it's going to happen at some point. Do I think it happens later on in the book series, like years down the road, or in the next age? I'm not entirely sure, but I do know almost 100% that at some point they're going to return to their homeworld and live their lives there, and then they're going to come back again for another reason. It's one of those things. I really, really wish there had been more books written after the fact. There's a whole lot of things I really, really want to know about, and I'm sure all of you do as well. Maybe someday we'll see that, but for now, speculation is all we have. All right, so I want to thank you guys very much for sticking with me here to the very end. You're all very, very awesome. Like, I don't know what to say about you guys. You're great. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. I put out 2 to 3 videos per week, mostly Wheel of Time on Prime-centric, news about the show and whatnot, although I do the occasional explained video or videos about the books as well. All right, thank you so much, and here's to many more.